I really didn't know how I wanted to start this video off since, as you guys can tell, trying a little something different here. No camera or anything, just me talking, because this is a topic that I don't think me and Jess have ever covered on the channel before, and that's professional wrestling. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to see professional wrestling content all of a sudden on the channel. Unless this gets a good reception, then maybe I will. Originally, another Ruby video was going to come out today, but Friday night was such a big night. A lot of just emotion and just disbelief and all that. And so it's going to be put, the next Ruby video will be on Friday. Or Wednesday. Sorry, it's late. I have to get in bed soon to go to work. And it's just... So yeah, CM Punk has returned after 7 years to professional wrestling to wrestle for AEW. And if you know nothing about professional wrestling, I understand why you might not know why this is such a big deal. But before I really get into this whole Punk thing, because I don't think me and Jess have ever talked about it on our podcast or our story times or anything like that, but both me and Jess love professional wrestling. I myself have been a fan. I've been watching since about 1996. So I lived through the entire Attitude Era, watching, WCW Nitro and WWF Raw's War every Monday night. I grew up, idolizing Sting, The Undertaker, Mick Foley, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair, all the, the greats, and of course my all-time favorite was Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it was when Austin retired in 2003, my love of wrestling kind of waned, because WCW had folded by then. There was no other wrestling promotion in the world to give WWE, now called WWE, any competition. And so I started seeing storylines and things that I just wasn't into. It wasn't for me. Now, of course, after Austin retired, he was on TV for a while as the co-general manager of Monday Night Raw and stuff like that, but then he just disappeared altogether. And I struggled for the longest time to find to find a favorite wrestler. The Undertaker was still around, but I was mostly a Raw guy, and he was on SmackDown for most of the time. And just to be honest, I was never a big fan of John Cena. I actually, I went to a house show in Knoxville once when I was in high school, and it was right before WrestleMania 20 when he won his first WWE Championship against JBL. And he ran to the crowd and ran into me and my friend who were there, and we patted him on the back and all that. So at that time, that's when John Cena he still wasn't the man, but they were building him to, and so he was still really well liked. But after he got on top, everybody started souring on him. They got tired of him pretty much, because at that time WWE was just forcing him at the top. He was always in the title hunt and all that, and just people started getting tired of him. They would call him boring and stuff like that. So, and Cena was never just the guy for me. I needed someone who was more real, who was more gritty. And that's when CM Punk came on WWE television, and there was just something different about the guy. Even in his early days on WWE's version of ECW, there was something different about him. He was, like I said, gritty. He was tough. But he also lived, as he always said, a straight edge lifestyle. He's never done drugs. He's never drank. He's never smoked. He's stayed away from that stuff. But even CM Punk at the time could not keep my interest in WWE. I was just not a fan of the stories they were doing. And then until he really got his big push, calling himself the best in the world, his very lengthy title run, up until he left WWE in 2014. Now, I'm not going to go into why he left. It's like it's a very like the story of why CM Punk left WWE has become such a deep dive and almost deep lore in the wrestling world altogether. It would warrant a whole video just dedicated to the story. But yeah, he did not leave WWE on good terms. And really, and tell you the truth, I think I had already stopped watching WWE by the time he left, because even with him there, WWE's storylines and booking was just not for me anymore. I don't know if I outgrew it or because they were rated PG, they just couldn't do anything for someone my age. And I tried watching TNA at the time, and this was around the time TNA really started to almost collapse within itself, that I sadly I left pro wrestling behind. But that was until 2018, 2019, when AEW came around, and me and Jess finally decided to give wrestling a chance. And I'll admit, AEW reminds me of why I love professional wrestling. It's not sports entertainment. It is good old-fashioned professional wrestling. And ever since the first episode of Dynamite, me and Jess have watched every single week. But, in late July, the rumors started that CM Punk was going to be signing with AEW. Now, of course, it was every year rumors about him would start up. Oh, WWE is getting him back, or now that AEW is around, they're talking to him. Now, it was always dismissed, never happened. But the reports in July was really different, because they had way more detail about them and all that. But of course, you still had people saying, I'll believe it when I see it. There's no way he's coming back. He hates professional wrestling now. And even though I believed it was happening, especially when AEW started dropping so many hints, whether it be the last minute announcement that they were going to the United Center, a building that is very hard for professional wrestling to fully book, and they sold it out on a rumor. And then Darby Allin's, promo about wanting to face the best in the world, MJF kind of referencing the pipe bomb promo in his own promo on Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega wearing a Cookie Monster t-shirt and then a Chick Magnet t-shirt, the cameras panning in on fans chanting CM Punk. It was just it was obvious in a way. But I have a very bad track record of believing something is going to happen, and I'll open my big mouth and hype it up, and then it doesn't happen. So I was like, I don't want to get excited. I don't want to get my hopes up. And then on August 20th, Friday night, it happened. They opened up with him, in which they had to. There is no way they could have had any of the three matches that happen go on without introducing him first. That crowd would have hijacked the show, because they opened it, they're already chanting CM Punk. It was deafening. There's no way. They would have ignored everything until he came out there. And, we heard the static. Cult of Personality started playing, and the roof came off that place. I actually believe JR when he said the reaction in that place had not been that big since Michael Jordan when he played for the Chicago Bulls. And it was just magic. I know a lot of people look down on professional wrestling because, the matches are predetermined and all that, but professional wrestling is capable of creating really emotional, impactful moments, and this was one of them. And like I said, say what you want to about professional wrestling, but these men and women put their bodies on the line weekly, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in professional wrestling that is not fake. The bumps they take are real. There are some times where the blows they put on each other do land a little stiff, and they do really hit each other. There's no real way to protect your body when you jump off the top turnbuckle into the crowd or onto a table. Yeah, the tables may be gimmicked, but it's still not going to feel good the very next day. And that's why I respect everyone that is in this business, because it really does wear and tear on you. Plus the just like all the sacrifices they make, the birthdays they miss, the anniversaries they miss, the births that they missed. Thankfully, the way Tony Khan runs AEW, that is no longer a thing, because he gives a light schedule to all of his wrestlers. And the big talk about going into the next pay-per-view is that everybody wanted Adam Page to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW title, but they had to scrap that because his wife is going to be having their first baby around that time, and normally that wouldn't have happened. They would have told him he just had to miss it. But that's, thankfully they gave him the choice. He chose to be with his wife, which is fine. They can put that title on him when he comes back, because let's face it, Adam Page is over. He is very popular. No one will be upset if he comes back and they put that title on him. I like Christian, but I just do not think they're going to put the title on him. I do not think that at all. But yeah, this was a game changer for AEW. I think, now, of course, ratings are never going to be Attitude Era ratings. The television landscape is way too different. It's changed way too much, especially with DVR and all that. So you're never going to see that again. Unless just something monumental or catastrophic happens. I don't know. But it's just that night, even after he left after dropping this amazing promo, the electricity was still kind of there in the building. You could tell they kind of waned a little bit, but I mean, it's Sunday night as I'm recording this, and the video of his debut is almost at 5 million views, and he's still trending. So, and I mean, he's this popular because of his personality, because he has a very blunt, I don't care what you think, this is how I feel, attitude toward things. He's very creative. He's very outspoken. He is going to help so many of the young talent in AEW. It's going great to see him go up against them. It's going to be great to see him going up against some older foes, like heck, maybe him and Chris Jericho. Love to see him and John Moxley go up against each other. I'd love to see him and Kenny Omega. It's going to be very, very interesting. I do think he is going to go over on Darby Allin at the next pay-per-view, because you can't have CM Punk lose his first match back in Chicago. There's no way. It will not hurt Darby Allin at all if he loses this match. So yeah, I wanted to wait until the weekend was over to post a video about it, just so I could have time to register it all, but it's still hard to believe that he's back, because he once said he would never come back to professional wrestling. But if there's anything to take away in that promo, it was kind of hinted that as long as WWE was the only place that he could go, he was never coming back. Because, I mean, let's face it, we all know the story. He didn't want to work for Vince again. And I mean, when you know everything, you can't blame the guy. And him and Tony Khan did a media scrum after Rampage, and you can just tell Punk is very happy where he's at in life and to be with AEW. He trusts Tony. He loves the atmosphere in the locker room. He says it really does just feel like a big old family. He loves the whole idea of having a lighter schedule. He can do what he can do, his other things that he wants to do. It did say he is open to wrestling more if he decides to, so that'll be interesting. It is a full-time contract, so this is not short-term. He's not going to be here for a couple of months or a year and then be gone. Only thing I hope is that he stays healthy. Hope he doesn't get any injuries. And really, if you think about it, this is just the beginning. We've got the rumors that Daniel Bryan is coming into AEW in September in New York City. News is hitting now by The Observer that Bray Wyatt is definitely coming to AEW once his no compete is over with, which will be around October, right in time for Halloween, pretty much. And, you know, tonight is Adam Cole's final NXT takeover under his contract, and it's still not known if he is staying with WWE or if he is going to AEW, because, you know, he's big friends with the Young Bucks. You know, his girlfriend, Britt Baker, is works for AEW. She's now a huge star in AEW, but then again, he loves Triple H. He loves Shawn Michaels. He did say recently that his Twitch channel is not going anywhere, so that either means he's leaving WWE or he's staying, but he's just going to stay in NXT and not go to the main roster, because if you're in NXT, you get to keep your, you know, Twitch and YouTube and OnlyFans and all that stuff. So we'll just have to see. We'll definitely have to see what is said in the next couple of weeks, but man, like, I just can't believe this happened. CM Punk in AEW wrestling once again in 2021. It's something I never thought would ever happen, because, you know, 7+ years is a really hard thing to come back to from wrestling. But then again, Christian was retired for about 7 years. He's now back. Edge was retired for almost about that time. You know, he had a very major neck surgery. He's back wrestling. So, you know, Daniel Bryan did it. It's never say never. That's really what you need to learn from this. Never say never. And, you know, sometimes it just takes a new promotion on the block to really change somebody's mind. One quick note, I did like that Punk did bring up that the way AEW handled the passing of Brody Lee was a major thing that put his faith in AEW, because Punk is a very private person. He does not like personal stuff being talked about all over the internet, all over the news and all that. So that really spoke levels to him. And Brody Lee's passing was just heartbreaking. Like, I remember watching that memorial show, and me and Jess, we both just bawled our eyes out. We both cried like no other during that. It was a very emotional show, but it was a great celebration of life. And the fact that Punk saw that and was like, you know what? I like what's going on here. And the fact that him and Tony Khan have been talking to each other for about a year and a half almost about him coming into AEW. So when the news broke in late July that he might be coming to AEW, we got the very tail end of the story here. This has been talked about for a while, and it turns out that the pandemic is what stopped it from happening until now, because they wanted him to debut in front of a crowd. And, you know, it was Punk's idea to do it at the United Center in Chicago, so it all came full circle. You know, this was something perfectly done. Something that I don't think has ever been done in professional wrestling, as far as how the pieces just fell together so perfectly. But it was a magical time. You know, like I said, say what you want to about professional wrestling, but this was magic. This was pure magic, and I really do think the world of professional wrestling is really on the verge of major change. And I cannot wait, because I have not been this excited for professional wrestling since the late 90s. And it's nowhere near the Attitude Era, but I definitely think we are on the verge of a third wrestling boom, and I am so ready for the ride. So I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't know if we'll continue to do wrestling videos. If this gets a really good reaction, we might. But this was such a major moment in a sport that I have really enjoyed since I was a kid. Jess is the same way. And I just wanted to give my thoughts on it. So as always, guys, this is Kanan. Me and Jess love you all very, very much. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. And I will see you in the next one. See ya.